The first light of the Roman dawn crept gently over the edges of the camp, touching the leather tents with a soft gold that seemed almost hesitant to disturb the lingering shadows. The air held a faint chill, carrying with it the earthy scent of packed soil and yesterday's ashes from the dying campfires. Long before the full murmurs of the Legion awakened, one soldier stirred beneath his wool blanket, the fabric rough but familiar against his skin. His name was Lucius Marcellus, an ordinary legionary posted far from the home he barely remembered. And this day, so much like thousands before it, unfolded in the slow and quiet rhythm that shaped the very heartbeat of Rome's army. He sat up slowly, blinking at the gentle light seeping through the tent flap. For a brief moment, he simply listened. The soft snoring of his tent mates, the quiet shifting of men turning in their sleep, the distant faint call of a waking bird perched somewhere along the wooden palisade. These were sounds he had grown accustomed to, sounds that wrapped themselves around each morning like a familiar woolen cloak. He reached for his sandals, the leather straps worn smooth from countless marches, and began fastening them with unhurried care. Every day began this way, with calm, deliberate movements that eased the body into wakefulness. Outside, the camp still rested in a peaceful hush. Rows of tents stood neatly aligned, their silhouettes calm and orderly against the softening sky. The scent of damp grass hovered along the ground, blending with the faint resin of the wooden stakes hammered deep into the earth. Lucius stepped out, drawing in a long, quiet breath. His breath fogged faintly in the chilled air, and he watched it drift upward before it disappeared. A slave assigned to the cohort had already started a small cookfire nearby, its first flickers of flame licking gently at the kindling. The crackle was soft, soothing, a reminder that warmth and food were not far behind. Lucius made his way toward the central pathway of the camp, moving at the steady pace that came from years of practiced routine. He passed the contubernia tents, each one nearly identical, save for small personal touches. A carved charm hanging from a doorway, a soldier's wooden cup resting just outside, a neatly coiled rope placed beside a shield. He heard the faint rustling of men beginning to stir, the soft thump of someone adjusting a pack, and the muted clink of metal as an armor piece brushed against another. Nothing hurried, nothing sharp, just the slow awakening of disciplined life. He reached the water troughs, where a few early risers already stood, splashing their faces with cold water that sent gentle shivers across their skin. Lucius cupped his hands, lowering them into the cool surface, feeling the water gather smoothly against his palms before he lifted it to his face. The shock was refreshing, a soft jolt that cleared the remnants of sleep. The water smelled faintly of the wooden barrel from which it had been poured earlier that morning, carrying a calm, earthy note that reminded him of mountain streams far from the structured world of military life. By the time he returned to the small fire, a pot of porridge had already begun to warm. The oats thickened slowly, releasing a comforting, grainy aroma. A few soldiers gathered around, their breath curling upward, their voices quiet and subdued as they exchanged murmured greetings. Lucius took a simple wooden bowl and let the warmth settle into his hands. He ate without rush, savoring the plain but filling taste that anchored every morning. Sometimes the porridge carried a handful of dried fruit, but today it was only oats and a pinch of salt. Still, the simplicity offered a reassurance of routine, a predictable beginning to a day built from many predictable hours. After breakfast, the camp grew busier, though never chaotic. Soldiers assembled for morning duty, adjusting belts, checking straps on their helmets, testing the weight of their scuda. Lucius retrieved his armor, running his fingers along the cool metal segments of his larica segmentata. His hands moved with care, tracing the familiar curves before he tightened the straps that held the plates securely against his body. The armor settled onto him with the soft, metallic whisper of overlapping plates, a sound he had learned to find comforting rather than cumbersome. The sky brightened as he joined his sentry for their morning inspection. The centurion walked slowly along the line, his vine staff held lightly at his side. His eyes moved over each soldier with a quiet, assessing calm. Armor polished enough, sandals properly laced, shields without cracks, everything in order. The inspection passed without incident, and the men released faint sighs that blended into the morning's rhythmic stillness. Soon after, training began. Lucius stepped onto the practice field with his wooden sword, its weight heavier than real iron to condition strength and endurance. But even training held a steady, unhurried rhythm. The repetitive motions, the slow arcs of the arm, the measured placement of feet, the deep, even breaths, had become almost meditative. He practiced thrusts and blocks, feeling the wooden shield vibrate gently each time it absorbed a controlled strike. The air grew warmer, scented with dust stirred beneath their movements. The rhythm of training lulled his mind, a familiar dance of muscle memory. When practice ended, the soldiers moved on to their assigned maintenance duties. Lucius walked toward the armory area to clean and oil his kit. He sat beneath the shade of a tent, spreading a cloth across his lap and gently rubbing oil into the metal plates. The scent was warm and slightly woody, rising in soft waves as he worked. Each stroke of the cloth brought a faint shine back to the armor, and the process calmed him, grounding his thoughts. In moments like these, time felt as though it stretched quietly, without urgency, without demand. Only steady, mindful work. Around midday, the sun hung high above the camp, washing the tents and fortifications in a warm, gentle light. Shadows shrank to narrow strips, and the air carried the pleasant mingling of earth, leather, and cooking. Lucius walked toward the open-air kitchen area where steam drifted from simmering pots. Lunch was simple: bread, cheese, and a small portion of cooked barley mixed with vegetables. He ate slowly with his comrades beneath a canvas awning that muted the bright sunlight. Conversation was low and easy, discussions of home, of the weather, of small camp matters. The food filled him without heaviness, and the warmth of the day settled softly into his limbs. After eating, the camp entered its quietest hours. Some soldiers used the time to rest, lying beneath the shade with shields propped beside them. Others performed small tasks like mending sandals or writing brief notes on wax tablets. Lucius preferred to walk slowly along the camp's perimeter. The wooden palisade cast long, straight shadows across the ground, and the faint breeze carried scents from beyond the camp: wild grasses, distant smoke, and something floral he could never quite identify. He paused at intervals to watch the land beyond, calm and wide beneath the early afternoon sun, feeling the steady hush that came from being far removed from city noise. When he returned, he joined a small gathering near one of the supply tents, where several men prepared their marching packs for routine inspection. Lucius checked the stitching of his pack straps, making sure none had loosened. He folded his cloak neatly, storing it with practiced precision, then adjusted the placement of his tool kit, small items he might need on the march. Stakes, reserve straps, bits of cloth. The familiarity of these tasks brought a sense of order to the day, a gentle reassurance that everything had its place. As the afternoon began to cool, the soldiers prepared for another round of light drills, nothing taxing, just basic formations, marching practice, and shield positions. Lucius moved with his cohort in calm synchrony, the soft thud of sandals against the ground forming a soothing rhythm. The commands, though firm, carried no urgency. The men turned, stepped, and aligned themselves with smooth precision, the movements almost like a quiet choreography built from years of repetition. When the drills ended, the camp transitioned into the slow rituals of evening. Fires were rekindled, and the sky shifted toward muted gold. Lucius returned his helmet and shield to the designated rack beside his tent before settling onto a low stool to check his weapon for any signs of wear. He ran a cloth along the gladius blade, feeling the subtle vibration of the metal beneath his fingers. He tested the firmness of the grip, the straightness of the edge. The evening light caught the blade, reflecting soft highlights across its surface. A gentle buzz of conversation floated through the camp as soldiers prepared their evening meal. Lucius ladled stew from a communal pot, lentils, onions, herbs, its aroma deep and comforting. He ate slowly, savoring the warm, earthy flavors that soothed him after a long day. The fire crackled softly, sending sparks drifting upward into the dimming sky. Around him, voices remained calm, blending with the occasional soft clatter of bowls and the murmurs of tired men settling into the evening. As twilight deepened, the camp entered a peaceful lull. Lucius wandered toward the edge of the camp again, pausing near a watchtower where two sentries exchanged quiet words. From the elevated position, he observed the landscape bathed in fading light. The horizon softened into shades of rose and muted lavender. The world felt still, almost suspended in a moment untouched by time. He stood there for a long while, breathing in the cooling air, letting the calm of dusk settle around him like a cloak. When he finally returned to his tent, the sky had grown dark, except for a scattering of early stars. Inside, the warmth of shared bodies lingered faintly, along with the subtle smell of wool blankets and leather gear. Lucius lay down, drawing his blanket up to his chest. His muscles relaxed slowly, unwinding from the day's steady routines. The muffled sounds of the camp, a quiet laugh, a distant cough, the soft shift of a man turning in his sleep, merged into a soothing backdrop. His thoughts drifted, unfocused, carried by the steady breath of life in the Roman camp. Sleep came gently, the same way it always did, settling over him like a whisper. This day had been ordinary, unremarkable, and yet it held a quiet beauty that defined a legionary's life. Simple tasks, slow rhythms, familiar routines, and the soft, grounded sense of belonging to something steady. Tomorrow would come in much the same way, with dawn sliding once again across the leather tents, and the gentle murmurs of waking soldiers rising to meet it.